a contest, as I recall. We were giving away turkey. I don't know how long ago this was. And Grace she used to get mad at Fred. She used to call me, too, and scream at me. And she won a turkey, and she didn't. She said told Fred to stick it.
All right, now listen to this. This is the more extended version of Grace.
Planted against Bush.
No, they weren't.
Well, I think they were. Well, how can you justify Grace?
I always enjoyed this talk show.
Well, Grace,
talk show many times.
I'm sorry. You know what, Grace? Sometimes we don't all agree. Sometimes we don't all. That is life, isn't it?
KDKA,
is that life?
They were entirely against. You know what's wrong? Clinton is too good looking and he has too much charisma. He's another Kennedy, and it's the same type of mentality that killed Kennedy that's against Clinton. You want to know that? That's what I think. The same type of mentality. Same type of mentality that killed Kennedy. And I don't want your damn turkey. You know what you could do with it.
Oh, all right, Grace. If you don't want the turkey, Joe, do you want the turkey? I mean, she didn't want the turkey. You want the turkey. I mean, you believe that? I gave her a turkey for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Even though she was beating up on me one side and the other, right? Even though she was accusing me of bad things that I don't do, and I reached out, I held out the drumstick in conciliation and offered her a turkey. I don't want your damn turkey. You keep your damn turkey. So, Joe, you can be the beneficiary of Grace's turkey now. Would you like the turkey?
Is that okay, Grace?
Well, she's gone. She hung up on me.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, when we're done talking, you hang on, and you talk to Chris Bailey. You get the turkey, Joe.
That was the famous Grace conversation that Fred used many, many times.
I don't know what ever happened to Grace, but she is a classic, and she will live on probably forever. Let's go to a couple of calls here. Do we have time? All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Joe in Bloomfield. You're on News Radio 1020 KDKA.
Hello, gentlemen. It's a sad day for the entire KDKA audience. Very sad. Fred Honsberger is one of those great voices that is now silenced forever, like the company of like Bill Steinbach, Ed Shaughnessy. And he was very passionate, whether you agree with him or not. And he will surely be missed. I'm very sad. I mean, very sad about this. And I can remember. I'll tell you how passionate he was. There was a time when there was an emergency down in your building down there where your studios are, and everybody had to evacuate, and he actually broadcast from a cell phone, put it through the board, and kept the show going.
That's right. That was when that was the great flood of 2005.
46 million gallons of water poured into the building, and they told everybody, get out.
He didn't want to leave.
No, he said, I'm going on the air, I don't care. And they said, not in here, you're not. So he figured out, this is Mr. Techno, do it on the cell phone, and he was outside, and he patched it through our board so that he could continue to broadcast.
You know, that started in the morning during my show, which was on in the morning at that time, and I'm sitting there. I didn't even have a clue that anything was going on. He comes barging into the studio while I'm on the air and says, hey, Pintek, look at this. And I said, what? And I go to the window, and this water is piping down the and so I finished my show, and then he came on in the afternoon, and he ended up doing the show from the cell phone right outside our studios here somehow.
If he didn't have the love and passion for broadcasting, nobody does.
You're right, Joe.
God
we appreciate your thoughts.
And his family and everybody. It was a great loss. Thank you.
Joe from Bloomfield on KDKA. And we have time to take another call. Let's go to Pat in Roslyn Farms. Pat, you're on KDKA.
Off air this past week, I asked Fred Honsberger if he was ill. And I could hear, just in his voice, I could hear him gasping for breath. I could tell that, to me, it sounded like he was suffering from like congestion.
He was struggling.
I believe he also had a cold too. So that I mean.
But the last couple of weeks, he was a little thin voice.
I do think I think it's a tribute to Fred and his professionalism. Once again,
kept at it.
That when people would, because I would listen to his show every day when on my way to work to see what he was talking about, and sometimes people would ask him about it. And he was such a consummate he never never complained, and he would say, you know what, I'm feeling fine, thanks very much for your concern, and God bless.
Thanks, Pat, and we appreciate your calls, 412-333-KDKA. A lot more to come. Larry Richert with Mike Pintek, remembering Fred Honsberger on News Radio 1020 KDKA.
You can now hear News Radio 1020 KDKA in crystal clear FM. If you have a high-definition radio, tune to WZPT HD3 New Kensington, WDSY HD3, and WBZW HD3 Pittsburgh. This is KDKA, KDKA HD Pittsburgh, and KDKARadio.com. From the Lexus of North Hills Studios, the voice of Pittsburgh, News Radio 1020 KDKA. Local news fast, first, now.
It's 25 degrees at 1 o'clock. I'm Rose Ryan Douglas on News Radio 1020 KDKA. Following a lengthy battle with medical issues, KDKA's Fred Honsberger died this morning at his home in Monroeville. He is survived by his wife and 2 sons and his mother. Fred Honsberger was 58 years old. Our in-depth team coverage begins with KDKA's Barbara Boyland, who was on Grant Street when we learned of Fred's death and talked to some of those who sparred with him over the years.
Well, in more than 30 years at KDKA, both in news and talk, Fred dealt with union leaders like Joe King, who's president of the Firefighters Union.
Fred and I go back a lot of years, and I did a lot of radio talk shows with him, you know, some over the phone, some not, and sitting down, you know, person to person. But from the firefighters, I mean, we lost a good man, a good man.
News of Fred's death stunned everyone, like Pittsburgh City Council President Doug Shields.
When you just told me, I'm shocked. You know, Fred, I think he did a great job on the air. I know initially he and I bounced around a little bit, but when I was on the program with him, he was always a gentleman. He was always willing to hear the other side.
And Council Finance Chair Bill Peduto says while he and Fred didn't always see eye to eye, they were able to debate the issues without things getting personal.
He was a rare breed, and I don't think that he's gone. I think that Fred Honsberger is part of the mosaic that is Pittsburgh and will remain there, too.
And that was pretty much the consensus. He'll be missed professionally and personally. Barbara Boylan, live in the News Center. News Radio 1020 KDKA. Michael Young, Senior Vice President and Market Manager, CBS Radio Pittsburgh, says Fred personifies what KDKA is.
He to me stood for common sense. He argued things that he thought made sense and that were right in his view, and he was passionate about that. And I think there's a lot of passionate disagreements we heard over the airways with Fred and listeners, and I think today some of those people, many of them who disagree with Fred, think of that. You sometimes get a different reflection and a different respect when you're able to look at that back in hindsight. But I think that's what he did, and I think that's what he did very, very well.
And now a quick look back.
Producer console on. Check. Amy maintains headphones. Operational.
This is KDKA's Bill Rakoff. Fred Honsberger's broadcasting career was a virtual radio tour of Pennsylvania, State College, Harrisburg, and Philadelphia among the stops. He came to Pittsburgh and KDKA in 1979 as a news anchor and reporter. After 5 years, Fred became news director. In 1989, Fred transitioned from news into the big chair in Studio K, and the Hans Man was born. Fred won dozens of awards, both as a journalist and talk host from organizations like the Columbia School of Journalism, the Radio and Television News Directors Association, the AP, the Press Club of Western Pennsylvania, and industry pubs like Radio and Records and Talkers Magazine, where he was a nearly permanent fixture on the Heavy 100 Talkers list. And Fred celebrated a remarkable run on KDKA, celebrating a 30th anniversary special in February of this year. Bill Rakoff, News Radio 1020. KDKA.
KDKA's Mike Pintek and Larry Richert are hosting a special look back at Fred's life and career for the next 2 hours on KDKA.